Hey guys, Jordan from Condo here. Today I wanted to talk about all of the condo launches that are coming to Toronto this fall. So there's like 30 plus in the GTA in terms of new condo launches. Now, given the market, given where we are today, I think the reality is the vast majority of them won't do very well on launch. But that doesn't mean there isn't going to be some standout successes. We're already seeing a lot of interest in particular projects. So in this video, I wanted to highlight the 5 that I see the most interest in and the 5 that I'm watching most closely to benchmark on how the market's doing. And by the way, if you do want to see all of the other projects that are launching, you can just go to precondo.ca. We put up the map with all of the launches that are coming this fall. You can just take a look at the condos and go view more information from there. All right, so number 1. We are going to talk about Bellwoods House. So this is Adelaide here, this is Strawn here, and this right here is the 13-story building right in the heart of Trinity Bellwoods called Bellwood House. So here you have it from Republic Developments, 13 stories, like I said, 325 units, and of course lots of terraces just because of the design of the building. This is where Penny's currently is, the yellow building at Adelaide and Strawn. Of course, you have a lot of red brick, you have a lot of terraces, you have arches. The building just fits in really well into Trinity, and the reason I'm watching this one so closely is because there hasn't really been a lot of Bellwoods offerings. In fact, there are none, right? And there are a lot of downsizers looking in that particular community, a lot of renters as well. It's a very difficult community to get into, and it's one that people really, really like. It's like Ronci, right? It has its own like cult-like following, but just not a lot of supply coming to the neighborhood. Most things are deemed heritage or zoned low-rise residential. Here you have the outdoor portion of the co-working lounge. You can see the red brick, you can see the arches, just a stunning building. And this is the party room and party terrace amenity, which would be on a rooftop, you can see here. And the interiors are really, really nice. Something worth noting about this building is, we've seen this trend in the past few years where developers are trying to fit more floors in lower heights to maximize profit. So they're going with 8.5-foot ceilings in some cases, which is absolutely brutal, in my opinion. Like it should be 9 or nothing, right? And in the case of Bellwoods House, over 70% of the units have 9.6 or higher. So 9.5-foot ceilings or higher. Of course, you have the concrete, so that soft loft finish and beautiful interior finishes. And then the amenities here are absolutely amazing. You don't have a pool to drain your maintenance reserve, which is great. You do have a massive co-working lounge with outdoor terrace on the ground level, and you also have the best gym I have ever seen in a condo building. You have a hanging roof to bring in what feels like natural light. All of the equipment is from Techno Gym, and of course, you have these stunning trees in the middle of your gym. To me, Bellwoods House is one of the most standout boutique offerings I've seen in a long time in Toronto, so I'm interested to see how this one does. I think it'll be a standout success even in this market. Now, this one will launch later in the fall, but I'm expecting in that $1,400 to $1,500 per square foot range. Now, this one did get a lot of press coverage because of the heritage building that Penny's is currently at King and Strawn, so very recognizable building. You may not know it was actually built in 1877. Now, because it's deemed heritage, they have to include it in the development, which I actually think is a win. And whether or not Penny's actually stays as a tenant kind of remains to be seen, but I would imagine, at increased rents, it's probably highly unlikely. You'll probably get like an upscale pizza cafe, something like that is what I'm personally hoping to see. But regardless, that retail component is incorporated into the building. Now, like I said, it was built in 1877 by John Meyer, a German-Canadian immigrant who took the money from he had a hotel at York and Front. It burned down. He took the insurance money. He built this as a grocery store with a residence on the top 2 floors. And if you're familiar with the neighborhood, it is just up the street from the Palace Arms Hotel, another heritage building fronting right on King, so right at King and Strawn, which is also actually slated to be redeveloped as well. Now, the Palace Arms Hotel got built shortly after the Penny's building in 1890. And of course, many traveling businessmen would stay there, one of which was a man by the name of Frederick Knapp. Now, Frederick Knapp was a successful lawyer from Prescott, Ontario, but he had a problem. He got seasick a lot, and he thought he had a solution. And he called his solution the Knapp roller boat, and it is exactly what you see in this picture here. It is a cigar-shaped boat with paddles on the outside. You can see from the patent filings here, basically it's a long cylinder with sort of a corkscrew paddle on the outside to propel the boat through the water. So he came to Toronto to find investors and to build this boat, and wouldn't you know it,
investors? Possibly you!
He managed to get investors on the back of his estimate that this boat would do 200 miles an hour. So he actually successfully got investors into this project, and he built this boat in the Toronto harbor. But it only managed 5 miles an hour. right? So far below the estimate and not really that usable. But honestly, I would take it as a win that this thing didn't sink and kill everybody on board. But regardless, all the investors lost their money, and this boat is buried somewhere in the Toronto harbor to this day. Now, you're probably asking yourself, how does this fit into real estate? Well, it doesn't really, but I just went down a 2-hour rabbit hole when I was researching the historical significance of these two buildings, and I wanted to share that information with you because I found it fascinating. If it was a waste of your time, use the dislike button as a stick to real estate guy button. But if you like that type of content, do follow me on Instagram and TikTok, where I talk about more sort of quirky Toronto history. So like I said, the Palace Arms Hotel is also going to be developed, and you can see it right here. So the south views, not so great on Bellwoods, but because everything surrounding it is heritage and low rise, all of the other views are stunning, including the terraces that are going to get those stunning sort of skyline views, but really in every direction. All right, now keeping with the harbor front theme, we're going to head to a project called Q Tower. So this is Q Tower right here, Lower Simcoe, Queens Quay. Of course, you have the harbor buildings. You've got 10 York right here. So just an amazing waterfront location. And the reason I'm watching this one closely is because how many waterfront or very close to waterfront prime pieces of real estate do you really have left in Toronto to develop? Not that many. And so it'll be interesting to see how this one goes because the marketing on this is all about those southern views. So this is Q Tower here. Of course, you can see the higher floor southern views featured here with those unobstructed lake views, which are of course going to be the units that get the most interest. Architecturally, very plain Jane building, but exactly what you would expect to see for a building that is targeting investors. What do I mean by that? Well, it's 877 units across 59 stories. The good news is they do have 7 elevators, so the building is adequately equipped to handle that kind of density. The bad news is it's just a lot of density, right? That's a lot of very small units, and that was recently featured when they painted the unit size and the floor plate of the building on the parking lot. That's, of course, they're replacing with the site. So you can see here, the focus is on small, affordable units. Of course, this building is going to be predominantly purchased by investors, and that's why I'm so interested in this one. Amazing location, AAA developer. The question is there absorption for investors right now? Trinity Bellwoods, it's more end user focused. This is more investor focused. It'll be interesting to see how this one does. And I'm expecting about $1,700 to $1,750 per square foot, which sounds like a lot. But when you put it in the context of the fact that, projects in the Church Street corridor or the Moss Park area have been launching in the last 2 years at basically the same prices, to me, this is a better deal than buying those. Would I live here? No. From a long-term investor standpoint, looking for those water views, really, where do you get that these days? Now let's zoom out here and rip up to Yorkville, or the Yorkville area, I should say. So here's Yonge Street, here's Church Street, and right at Church and Park, you get Park Road, the Yorkville Flatiron building right here. Now, worth noting, on those southern views, you're gonna have to be medium floor and higher because you'll be directly obstructed by that building that currently exists on the south side of Church. And on the north side, once you get higher into the views, you of course get the view of the valley, which is really, really nice as well. Now, it's called the Yorkville Flatiron for a reason, because it's a Flatiron building. It looks absolutely stunning. I mean, from an architecture standpoint, just an amazing building. It's in a great location. Is it Yorkville? I don't know. It depends on who you ask. If you ask someone who lives, in Yorkville, west of Yonge, they're going to say, of course not. Anything east of Yonge is not Yorkville. If you look at the map in Google, it's going to tell you it is smack dab in Yorkville. Who really cares? Regardless of how you slice it, the location's amazing, but the price is better at $1,600 a square foot. So at $1,600 a square foot, this is a really good deal. How do they manage that? Well, they manage it because there's no parking. So what I love about this building is also the catch. The price is low because they're not digging underground. So you only have car share spots for parking, no designated parking for owners, which is kind of brutal, but it's a trend that we're seeing, a lot of buildings go. You're going to see it more and more moving forward. So to me, you're getting into an amazing neighborhood at $1,600 a square foot. You just have to sacrifice parking. But if you're buying a 1-bedroom anywhere in Toronto anyways, you can't buy parking. So does it really change the dynamic? I don't think so. So I think this one will do really, really well. Of course, the north view is stunning on the higher floors. You have the full suite of amenities as you would expect. And you also have rooftop amenities as well. Chef kitchen, private dining room, 2 terraces. Just stunning amenities at this building. Great architecture, great finishes. So $1,600 a foot, you're getting Yorkville adjacent, great finishes, great architecture, amazing amenities. I think it's a pretty good deal. And I think this price honestly shocked a lot of people in the industry, myself included, and a lot of developers who have product and standing inventory in Yorkville currently, because they're looking at this price list going, well, how do I sell my stuff? I can't really compete with this. The other thing that's worth noting is Casa 3, also technically not Yorkville, right? Because it is east of Yonge. But you look at this recently leased unit at Casa 3, right on Charles Street there, a studio, 312 square feet leased for $2,400 a month. So almost $8 per square foot per month. some of the highest rents you will find anywhere in the city. Now let's shift gears and talk about my favorite neighborhood, Etobicoke. So if we zip up Kipling here, so here's Kipling, here's Kipling, and of course, you've got Kipling TTC, you've got Kipling Go Station, and this right here is Arcadia from none other than Ellis Don. Obviously they're a massive one of the biggest builders in Canada. You name it, they've built it, even internationally. So universities, transit and infrastructure, hospitals, like one of the biggest, most reputable developer or builders in the country. They are now a real estate developer as well. So they recently paid $117 million for this piece of land. That's going to be 4 buildings ranging from 12 to 42 stories, 1,300 condo units, 60% of which are 1 bedrooms, 27% are 2 bedrooms, and the balance, of course, are 3 bedrooms. Now, we don't have price guidance on this yet, but I'm expecting $12 to $12.50 per square foot. That sort of sweet spot, which I think is really good value. Look, people are paying $1,200 a square foot, not on transit in Oakville, or $1,000, $1,100 a square foot in Milton. So again, $1,200 a square foot. You're on Kipling Go, you're on Kipling TTC, you are in the 416 proper. Okay. I think it's really good value. Now, of course, I've been talking about the Kipling and Islington Station area as sort of value pockets to watch for growth in. So I'm a little bit biased. I live in the neighborhood, right? And in terms of growth, you have within a kilometer, you have 10,000 proposed or under construction units, which will house 27,000 residents. And within 2.5 kilometers, you have 23,000 units coming into this pocket of Etobicoke. So an additional 60,000 residents. Oh, and they're also partnering with SMEG, which is a cool little add-on. Look, when you're paying $600,000-700,000 for a 1-bedroom, it's nice to get some beautiful appliances. So they are the first developer to partner with SMEG, which is great. And of course, I mean, the big draw here is just value, transit, and Ellis Don being both the developer and the contractor, the builder. They can cost control a little bit better and launch at slightly more affordable prices than than a competing developer could if they acquired the same land and launched the same product type of deal. Now let's head down to the Queensway and Islington. So here we go. This is Islington. This is the Queensway. We will whip around to this side here. And this building right here is called Boulevard Q from Mattamy Homes. Now the Queensway, as you can see, has a lot of mid-rise proposed along it. Head all the way down. You have the Sherway redevelopment. You have the Cloverdale redevelopment here. And of course, just Queensway has a lot of redevelopment as well. And this isn't all you're going to see. There's land assemblies happening here frequently. I think this is just a pocket to watch. Again, I'm biased. I live in the area. I love the Queensway, right? I call it the poor man's Bloor West, which I think is fair. It's like I think it tracks. It just needs a little bit of sprucing up, which is starting to see, which is great. So this is a pocket I really like. So here you have Boulevard Q, 210 units over 11 stories, nice sort of mid-rise building, and it's from Mattamy. The reason that this project is interesting to me is because it's from Mattamy. So in the last 2 years, Mattamy has been one of the few developers. They have a lot of pricing power being Canada's largest home builder. And so they've been undercutting everybody. You look at their launches on Bloor West, you look at their launches in the West End in general, they've been undercutting everybody on launch price, and it's going to be no different here. We're expecting around that $1,100 per square foot mark. Again, people are currently spending $1,100 per square foot in Hamilton, and those units are actively selling today. Hamilton's one of the markets that's still doing very well. So to me, you get on the Queensway for the same price as Hamilton, it's kind of a no-brainer. You also have ground floor retail, which is a nice component on the Queensway, and you're walking distance to Tom's Dairy Freeze, which everybody knows adds $50 per square foot to your resale value. That's it for this video, guys. If you want more information on any of these developments, links are in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.